Welcome back to Property Lunch with Giuseppe. Now, today I have a special guest, Trevor Cutmore. I met Trevor a few years back, and Trevor is a property developer, a trainer, and a property investor. But I would say probably most importantly, he's a family man. And Trevor will talk about the family, how important is the family in all the goals that we set in our life. So welcome, Trevor. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. Really, thank you very much for having me on.
You're very welcome. So one of the first questions I generally ask is why? Why did you get into property? Why property and not something else?
Well, Giuseppe, when I was at school, I didn't do very well in school. I was bullied very badly for 10 years in school, and I ended up leaving school with 1 level. There was a teacher that came to my school that was one of the top martial art experts in the country. His name was Brian Jacks. He saw me and he said, Trevor, if I deal with those bullies, you'll be bullied for the rest of your life. But if you train with me, I can change your life forever. And I have to mention him because he alone, Brian Jacks, changed my life, that I wouldn't be here today without him. So I trained physically for 2 years and he changed me. I ended up fighting martial arts for Great Britain. I never lost in 2 years. But the important thing is he said, and I was still being bullied, but one day after 2 years, he said, Trevor, I think it's time you can hit back. And I was being beaten by 2 bullies, both bigger than me. And I turned and I hit one of them twice, and the other one ran away, which was surprising because 2 against 1, you'd think they'd carry on, but they ran away. And the one that I hit twice in the abdomen, he collapsed and an ambulance came. And after that, I realized that even if I lost, if I fight back, they will leave me alone. And so that changed my life, and it gave me a confidence which I've never lost. Not a confidence of arrogance, but a confidence of no matter what you do, have a go. So I left school with not very much, and I became a chef, and I did college, and then I went into Italian cuisine. And why? So there's a man called Armando Taverna, and he was the general manager of Marion Franco restaurants in London. And I got a job there, and I went to him and I asked him for an extra £10 a week so I could buy a flat. And he said, Trevor, I give you that, but you got to work an extra half a day. And I did it. So I worked 5.5 days a week, 1 day at college, and that's how I started. I did very well in chefing. I worked in Knightsbridge, Knightsbridge, Kensington, and Mayfair. And then I went out to work in Lake Como in Bellagio. And in Knightsbridge, they were paying me, we're talking 30 years ago, they were paying me about £55,000 a year, an apartment where I could see Harrods, and they looked after me. They're really, really good. And I did well. But then I was fed up with cooking for all the rich and famous and seeing them come and be more impressed about impressing people and treating people badly. And I thought, my life is having no consequence. And so I got offered a job as a community development officer. And what I did is I gave my job up and I took a 2/3 salary cut to become a community development officer. And that was going out into the community and building things like youth centers, community projects, debt counseling service, training centers and stuff like that. And I did that for 10 years and I absolutely loved it. It changed my life. I went on from there and we were serving people in the community and making a difference, making a change and changing lives. But we had to sustain it. So I did all the bid writing and I was raising hundreds of thousands of pounds for these projects, but it was running out. And a friend of mine said, Trevor, we need to invest in property in order to sustain what we're doing. So it's out of sustainability of projects, of philanthropy, if you like. And, I went back to, after having 1 O-level, I went back to university. I did a couple of degrees. One was in community development, another one in social and community studies. And I did that and it was hard. We had a daughter back in 2006 and she's 14 now. And it was hard to do that. So I had to wait till everyone was bed and I sit and I worked and did my assignments and everything. But we wanted to make a change. And I think that's probably the most important. when I went to work going property, we got scammed. And the first two properties I bought, there was a promise. It was a promise. And my advice to people, if you're looking at getting to property and someone's promising you something, run. Okay. So this promise was 25,000 buyback in 3 years and guaranteed rent for 3 years. Okay. We bought two each, my friend and I. It was a bigger scam. Those properties were 120, 125,000 pounds. They were sold six weeks earlier for 60,000 pounds. So they were already in negative equity. Within 3 months, we were in court trying to fight for the rent because they didn't pay us. And I've now got the debt. So I'm living on credit cards. And remember, I took a 2/3 salary cut. Then I learned how to do joint venture. Now, sadly, I did finish with my business partner after a few years, and I went almost back to zero. But I started again, and knowledge is really, really powerful. The more you know, the quicker that you can actually move. And I started to buy more property, not just with my money, but other people's money. And I've got to a place now that I don't, if somebody comes to me now, I don't put any money in. They put all the money that we need. That will be for the deposit, the surveys, the architects, the planning fees, the stamp duty, everything. But I take a 50% share of equity and revenue.
Yeah.
And that's what I do. So I have a lot of people. I've got someone at the minute putting £1 million into a company, and so we can buy. How did I start? The options were great and really good. I was very nervous. I'm an expert. I hate saying expert, but I am pretty much, because I have a creative mind. And if you want to know what an option is, it's a blank piece of paper. You've got to create it. And so that's the powerful thing. And I am a problem solver. I love problems. Give me a problem and I will see a way around it, or see a different way. I love it. And then really, as I've gone on, I started, my first property was at I think £52,000. And then property investors get stuck, and they really do get stuck at a limit, and they can't seem to go any further. And they might stay at £50,000 properties. They might stay at £100,000. They might stay at 200,000. But with options, you can do multi-million pound properties. And so within a few years, we did a property that was worth 2.5 million. We offered 2.7 million and we sold at 4 million, but by doing a £700,000 refurb. That was with a friend of mine. He got it. He asked me to help him, and I did that, and we got a share of that. So that was great. And now I build houses. I don't put a single penny into it. So I've done 6 recently. We're looking at another 14. We're looking at another 16, and I don't put any money into it whatsoever. The money that I make, I just keep buying my portfolio. So I particularly like 2 and 3 bed houses. I do. I've got a number of HMOs. I have to say that I want to convert those into flats, which is what I'm doing now, one a year with those, to get rid of them. As anyone in property, when you start in property, Giuseppe, you'll know that you really get someone who, you talk about HMOs and they chuck the money in, and then they realize what it's like to manage an HMO. You don't know until you know, all right? And so I'm turning all my HMOs back into flats, multiple flats, and it increases equity and increases revenue. And I love it.
First of all, I remember the first time I met you, you mentioned one of the books that really had a strong impact in my life. The book was called Go for No.
Yes.
So it's a small book, but it's so good. Because we tend to run away from the no, from the rejection. But in reality, you have to go through the failure, through the rejection, to get through to where you want to be. And that thing was very clear in what you said before in your life. You had so many rejections, but you still kept going. You had a kind of, let's say failure is not like a bad word. You had a setback when your first 2 houses were not a good investment, but you kept on going. So what was that motivation for you, that trigger to say, property, yeah, I had 2 bad experiences, but I still need to do it?
I think, going back to my childhood at school, that's one. The other thing is, I think we can learn so much from history. And I have certain champions in my life. So one is Eric Liddell. He was a runner and he had no chance. A wonderful story. Um, Another one, let's take Thomas Edison, which is probably more well known than Eric Liddell. Thomas Edison was asked, what is it like to fail? I can't remember if it's 1,000 or 10,000 times with the experiment. And his answer was key. And he said, I never failed once. It was 1,000 or 10,000 attempts. And if I failed, you would not have a light bulb, you'd be sitting in the dark. So how do we see failure? Failure is a lesson to learn. And so when we don't achieve, what have you learned? And if you learn, when I stand up on stage and I talk to hundreds of people, I'm quite funny on the stage, but I married a beautiful woman. We've been married 40 years. Now, as you can see, I don't have a lot to offer. Giuseppe, don't laugh. So the thing is that I asked a lot. I always want to have a beautiful wife, always, but it's impossible for me. But I asked a lot of beautiful women out. Now, if you take Richard Fenton's Go for No, you have to go for the no's, because you ask a beautiful woman, she looks at me, no. But if you keep going, you'll find the yes. And then you don't stop. And that's the thing. So that book typified, now I read it later in my journey, but I absolutely affiliated with it. And I thought, absolutely. And it's a powerful one. I recommend anyone who's going and getting disappointed, read that book and get an appetite for no, and then you'll succeed.
It was one of the few books that gave me goosebumps. So I honestly recommend it. It's very, very good.
There are a lot of very successful people like Warren Buffett and the like, and quite a few of them were asked to say, can you write a paper on what the key to success? So they'd write a paper. I said, okay, can you put that into a paragraph? They write the paragraph. Can you put it into a sentence? And they write the sentence. And they said, can you put it into one word? And they all came out with the same word: persistence. And persistence means that in failure, you persist to success.
Yeah. Failure is, for me, the point of view about failure is either you don't do it at all or you give up on the way. So once you give up, that is an actual failure. Otherwise, it's just a learning curve, as you said. One question about people getting into property or getting into business in general. You have sometimes, you mentioned partners, like either joint ventures or the wife in your case. Mm-hmm. I hear a lot that either the wife or the husband do not agree with the partner to get into property, for example. Mm-hmm. And they ask me, Giuseppe, how do I convince my husband to get into property? And my response is always like, you don't have to convince it. You have to find the link. So how would you respond in your case?
I agree. My wife has nothing to do with the property. She doesn't like it. She really doesn't. And if you asked her where have we got properties, or where I'm doing a project now, or where the next 14 houses or 16 houses, she wouldn't be able to tell you. You are right. Look, in that circumstance, you find the common goal. And the common goal, because I need to be set free to go and do that. Otherwise, if I have to do something else, she wants me there. She has to support me. So it's all about information. And if I said, so look, let's suppose you're my wife, Giuseppe, and you're proving difficult. I would say Giuseppe, okay? I wouldn't say Giuseppe, I say Angela. I'd say something like, Angela, look, and my wife is Marie. Let's use Marie. I say, look, Marie, what do we want to achieve in the next few years? And she'd say, okay, well, bigger house, holidays, a nicer car, these sort of things. Great. And, we're both working, or I'm working, whatever it is, and it's going to take us years. I really, really want to get there faster. And if I can do that, and would you support me in that? Absolutely. So I've seen property. It's dangerous. I agree. It is dangerous. And if anyone says it's not, it is dangerous. All right. A lot of people burn and failed. So what's the key? You get education. Now, so what you have to do is say, look, I've seen these people or this person. This is their journey. This is where they've gone. Look at them speaking. Look at people speaking about them. I want to do some training with them. I want to do mentorship with them. I want to use this amount of money, perhaps from the house, which isn't going to jeopardize our livelihoods. It might put us back a bit, but we could afford 50,000, 100,000 out of the house and we can do something. And you manage it with risk analysis. Then your partner realizes that you're doing it with care and not with this crazy idea that you're going to make £1 million in a year. And you've got to manage it slowly and bite size. And if you do that in a mature and responsible way, I can't see that many partners won't agree and support. And the support, you're not looking for pat on the back and well done, I want to get involved. The support is, I've got to go away on a 3-day course. That's fine. I know you're doing that for our future. And that's the key, because, you know, when you get that, it fills you with a power that you go and you say, listen, I'm supported. When you go and you say, oh, you're doing that thing, I hate it, you know, you're wasting your time. You actually go with negative energy, and that's hard. That's hard.
Trevor, thank you so much again, and it's been great.
God bless you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.